Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome, everybody. I am Travis Hopson of PunchDrunkCritics.com and Cinema Royale, and I'm here for a special interview with the director and co-writer of what is, to me, the best movie of the year, 1917. This is the World War I film, directed by Sam Mendes, co-written by Mendes as well, and co-written by Krysty Wilson-Cairns. I had a chance to speak with both of them. The film stars George McKay and Dean Charles Chapman as the two leads. It also features Benedict Cumberbatch, Mark Strong, and more. Colin Firth as well. And the film is unique. It's very straightforward, but it's shot in one continuous take, which a lot of people consider a gimmick. A lot of movies have used it and used it as a gimmick, but Mendes does not do that. In fact, it is essential to the way the story is told. This would be a very, very different movie if it was done any other way. And I honestly, I can't imagine this story, which is very straightforward in the way it's told. I can't imagine it being done any other way. And I also couldn't imagine any other director doing it than the legendary Roger Deakins. But I had a chance to speak with Mendes and Krysty Wilson-Cairns about 1917. But before we get to that interview, I'm going to play a brief clip from 1917.
Colonel Mackenzie is in command of the 2nd. He sent word yesterday morning he was going after the retreating Germans. He is convinced he has them on the run. That if he can break their lines now, he will turn the tide. He is wrong. Colonel Mackenzie has not seen these aerials of the enemy's new line. Come around here, gentlemen. 3 miles deep, field fortifications, defenses, artillery, the like of which we've never seen before. The 2nd are due to attack the line shortly after dawn tomorrow. They have no idea what they're in for. And we can't warn them. As a parting gift, the enemy cut all our telephone lines. Your orders are to get to the 2nd at Quasi Wood, 1 mile southeast of the town of Auguste. Deliver this to Colonel Mackenzie. It is a direct order to call off tomorrow morning's attack. If you don't, it will be a massacre. We will lose 2 battalions, 1,600 men, your brother among them. You think you can get there in time?
Yes, sir.
All right, now here is my interview with Oscar-winning director Sam Mendes and 1917 co-writer Krysty Wilson-Cairns.
And I guess what I want to know to start is, where did the germ of the idea come from? It's one of the things I was thinking about. I've watched it a few times now, and
a few. That's more than 2.
Yeah, I know.
Wow.
I know.
So
And I watched it once for our screening, and I watched it a couple times at home.
Oh wow.
And I was thinking that we don't see very many.
That's why you're tired.
Yeah.
You're spending too much time watching movies.
It's
this time of the year, man. It must be tough for you guys.
Well, I mean, tough, right?
Yeah, exactly. I already put it in inverted commas in my mind.
Yeah.
But we don't see very many World War I movies on the big screen, and I was thinking about that, and it made me just kind of wonder, first of all, to start for both of you, where the idea for the story came from, and why to tackle World War I rather than one of the other wars that gets all the attention.
Well, I mean, listen, my grandfather told me stories. He fought in the war.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't fight in any other war, so this is the image that I had, and a story I felt compelled to tell.
Mm-hmm.
But you're right about World War I movies. There is a dearth. And I think partly that's because the war itself is so static, and so the landscape of the war is very limited. It's mud, basically. Mm. It's trenches and no man's land and not much else, and most World War I stories are people who are stuck. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. They just, because that's what happened to 99% of the men who fought the war. Yeah. They were paralysed for not just months, years, and hundreds of thousands of men lost their lives in a 200-yard stretch of land. So, how many stories can you tell about that? You know what I mean? People just walking over the top to their death. It's So the possibility of telling the story, which was based on a fragment that my grandfather told me about carrying a message through no man's land, that came when we found the moment in 1917 when the Germans retreated to the Hindenburg Line, and suddenly there was no enemy, and they were cut adrift, and the British didn't know where they'd gone. In reality, it took them 2 months to move up to the new line en masse. But there were these people who went out there first, thinking that the Germans had surrendered. So the moment we got that, I thought, here's a story we can tell, because actually, it's only when you see beyond no man's land, in a way, you understand the vast scale of the destruction of the war. Because obviously it wasn't just. I mean, as the Germans retreated, they razed everything to the ground. They chopped down the orchards, as you see, killed a lot of civilians. And left nothing of any lasting value for the British who were coming through, because they didn't want to sustain them. They wanted to fuck them up, really. In terms of tripwires and landmines and snipers, and it was a completely booby-trapped environment. And I thought, wow, there's a landscape you can tell a story across. Yeah. So that was where it came from, really.
Krysty, was this something you were interested in beforehand, this subject?
Yeah. She's very war nerd. She's a big war nerd. She knew more about the First World War than I did.
Well, not quite.
Well, I would possibly.
No, I was really fascinated by the two world wars growing up. I mean, where I'm from in Glasgow, the First World War decimated the male population. Women ended up working in the shipbuilding yards, and that had a profound effect on my family line. My grandfather was too young to fight in the war, but he kind of was very moved by what had happened, and he was a big believer in learning history so that you don't repeat future catastrophes. He passed that on to me. So I spent a lot of time kind of reading about the war, and when Sam phoned me up, I mean, as a writer, it was my dream to write a war story, but as a young-ish woman, it's sometimes not an option, not available, and so I feel very privileged that Sam.
Also, I was really, I didn't, there's a great pressure if you're, to have a sort of echo chamber, you know what I mean? That if like you and me got in a room, we'd probably have similar references, I mean, I'm not saying you're as old as me, but
probably closer to you.
You know what I mean? But yeah, so, I mean, I wanted someone whose view on the world was completely different. A woman, and B, well, actually, A, a great writer, B, a woman, and C, younger, and from a different generation, because I wanted to be challenged. I wanted people to pick holes in what I at that point had, which was only a treatment. And also, she's very clear-sighted, Krysty, and is able to make a decision quite quickly about something that she works and something that doesn't. But also, she's very honest. She's not unafraid. It's not sort of combative, And so it was a very easy collaboration, even though it was a very difficult script.
Yeah, and I'm curious, like when you're considering the way the film was shot, right? And I'm wondering how if that had any impact on the script, like in terms of making like details along the way.
Yeah, I mean, I think that weirdly though, you really know that if details are getting on camera, they're going to stay in the movie, and I think that you realise as a director how much you work on sets that don't make it into the film, so details, because in a Bond movie every set has detail, but you probably see only 10% of each of them really. No.
Well, how many cameras are there for a Bond movie, like at all at once?
Exactly, and so you're walking through these incredible environments. You think, if I could just show an audience this, is in a way trying to get how impressive it is on camera is quite tricky. But here, I just thought, if I could find a way to make these details land on the journey, then they're in the movie. You know what I mean? There was something really satisfying. It's like you have to place them very carefully, because they have to seem organic. I mean, if they seem contrived, like you plonked it there so we happen to see it as we pass by. But that's the same for all the movie. It all has to be orchestrated and staged in such a way as it just happens to fall in front of the camera as the camera takes its journey. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so you're studying every frame and every shot for maximum impact, but at the same time, you want this shifting relationship between the camera and the actors, so that you don't want it always there or here. You don't want to get stuck in it over the shoulder,
right?
Like a video game.
You want to
suddenly, you want to suddenly feel distance or geography or how small they are in a vast landscape. You want to introduce some locations. Some of them need to take you by surprise. All of those things. So that's all part of the debate, the dialogue that we had, and Roger Deakins and I had very early on about how to construct the shot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because one of the things that really caught me about the film was the way it kind of fades in and out. Like there are shots that are distant and some.
Yeah.
And the things that always caught me by surprise, especially early on, which are really horrific images, and a lot of them were that they kind of come out of nowhere and you're not expecting them.
Yeah.
Especially in the trenches.
I mean, not to spare your blushes at all, but you know, because Sam's such a visionary, when we were writing the script, he had such a almost innate feeling for how this reality would work. And I honestly don't think, well, I mean, nothing of this film would be possible without him, but the detail of it, the way it's rendered, how intimate and first-hand it feels, the way you're almost tied into Schofield's character and what he experiences. I mean, that was there from the treatment that we would first worked on. And movies like this, they're very few and far between, require that level of, like, I mean, it's beyond talent. It's mastery in some way. So, like, not to spare your blushes, but it is really, I mean, it just wouldn't be possible without vision.
Was there anything, as such a World War I buff, I guess?
Yeah.
Was there anything that you, like, a detail that you, like, really wanted to get in there?
I mean, what I really wanted to get in there was the sense of what it was like to be in that war, an intimacy with it. And so, I mean, the very first kind of phone call we had about it, I knew this was going to be a different kind of war movie. And I think there was loads of things I found in the research, well, that we both found in the research process that echoed something or resonated.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting though, because there were lots of, I think you like a magpie, you read all these first-person accounts, you think, oh, interesting, and you pick them out. And maybe 30% of what we picked out is interesting, we managed to get into the film. And there's so much detail, it's such a human war and such a human scale. Once you start concentrating, you know, in the micro, every person was wearing a scarf from home or a knitted sweater, and everyone looked different. Some people had personal jewelry, tattoos, people wore hats, and it just was, it's you know, so, and that's what the film's like in a microcosm. It's like, if you look at a photo of everybody, a distant photo, everyone look the same. The moment you get close, everyone looks different, and that's what you wanted to find, is you want to get inside. It's the same with No Man's Land. Squint and it's just flat earth. Enter it and it's an assault course for the fucking senses, you know what I mean? It's wires that are so deep, you know, and bodies hanging in wires. Earth just pounded to nothing, you know, craters, trenches, corpses, animals, rats, crows, you know, things floating on the surface of lakes of you know, vast abandoned shell holes. So, you know, that again, tanks just lying there like kind of beached whales, you know, and once you're in it, you're like, and it's the details within that landscape that suddenly bring it to life. Otherwise, it's just flat land. And I think in the sort of collective public imagination, No Man's Land is just like space with nothing. But you know, there used to be forests there and woods, and so the land itself changes shape and atmosphere, and so that's like doing the whole film. You know, just enter the world and close your eyes and try and actually live in it, and then reimagine it, knowing all these details, and pluck the ones that are useful to you. But you know, there were lots of things that you know we loved, we couldn't get in. There's no gas. I mean, gas is a whole other fucking thing. You know, gas is insane. I mean, it just defies belief.
Like
machine guns.
It was the rats that got to me. Sorry.
Machine guns. There's no machine guns. There's no combat. There's no tanks. No, these are the things that turned what was effectively, you know, a war that started with horses and carts and ended with as the first modern war. But there was no space for them. You know what I mean? In the film that we were trying to tell. So we had a surfeit of detail, and the more you look, the more you accrue. But then you can't make it contrived. It has to sort of it's like the bodies in No Man's Land. Too many, and it's just, look at this, death, and too few, and it's not accurate. It's just, you know, that feeling that you have when you just catch things out of the corner of your eye in life, a movement, and you think, is that a rat? But it's gone. You know, that's what we are trying to capture in a large scale. So you've got to allow the eye of the audience eye occasionally to be a little bit further away from the characters and begin to bear witness to this as an event, you know, just the scale of it and the horrors of it without it seeming gratuitous. So it's that constant balance every day of like, is it too much or is it not enough, you know? Are we too close? Are we too far? Are we somewhere in the middle? You know, and that was why it was like, sort of, for me, it was like being in a kind of trance making the film.
I was going to say, that seems really exhausting.
Yeah, it was. It was really, because you sort of lock yourself into something you can't get out of.
Yeah.
Normally I'm like, well, I'm just going to shoot it 7, 8 different ways. You know, I'll put, you know, have 8 setups, 10, 12, whatever, and then I will make those determinations about how and why and when for the audience in the cutting room. But when you take that away, you're adding the pressure that you normally experience in the cutting room to everyday shooting, and it's hard. And it's hard on the crew because, you know, I'm pushing because if it's on camera, it has to be perfect. It can't be, you know, we can dodge around it. And that's the same for dialogue, it's the same for performance, it's the same for a camera move. There can't be mistakes or anything that doesn't work, because before you have to get it before we move on.
The cast all around.
As I say it makes me want to go and hide and lie.
Yeah.
Under
I can't
actually believe I spent a year in this state of mind. But anyway,
I was going to say, like I said, it sounds exhausting.
I mean, I was
really
tired
grueling.
just watching you on set. Some days I was just wiped out. I was like, God, that was hard. And all I had to do was be there.
Does it make you want to jump behind the camera?
No. It makes me really, really, really respect Sam.
I said to her, this is good for you if you ever want to direct. And she went white. I don't want to direct. If this is what directing is, I'm not.
I was like, I don't know about that. Like, I'll start in the theatre maybe and work my way up, and like give myself 50 years and see.
That's interesting though, because that's kind of the path you took though. I mean, when you were doing American Beauty, did you ever imagine you'd be doing something on this kind of a incredible scale?
No, I mean, I think weirdly, the thing that when I really thought that was when I was doing Skyfall, and I thought, God, how have I got to this point where I'm doing, in charge of this this $250 million monster? You know what I mean? That's when I really thought, that's an interesting journey. Now this feels almost like I've gone back a little way to where something on the scale of Bond and a piece of theatre meet. It doesn't feel like now is not the moment. I think, how have I got here? I kind of know how I've got here. You know what I mean? In a way, I'm pulling it back to England, and actors I know and worked with before, pulling it back to something that in its shape resembles theatre. Not in its, obviously it's one of the most cinematic things I've ever attempted because it's constantly moving. But I am used to, theatre has made me used to judging 2 hours of performance without cutting, and that's what I had to do on that.
All right, that's my interview with Sam Mendes and Krysty Wilson-Cairns about their new film, 1917. And this movie is simply incredible. I believe it's going to be not only a Best Picture nominee, but I believe it is going to win at the end of the day. So be sure you go and check out 1917. It is in theaters now. You can find my review up at punchdrunkcritics.com right now. Thanks a lot for listening. Goodbye.